too could have something as specific. Perhaps the I Ching hexagram 21 will do. The Chinese symbol of yang lines on top and all yin lines in the middle translates into a mouth, an open mouth. My salvation has always been in conversation, acting aloud from my own writings or someone else's words, usually in comic form. I went to college to become the next Katharine Hepburn on stage or on screen. It didn't happen. I retreated to a library chorale and studied literature in solitude. In Berkeley in the 50s, I became a pre-beatnik. Taught grade school, took classes, acted in storefront theater, but most of my spare time was spent in cafe conversation at Robbie's on Telegraph Avenue. My working life, the paying kind, has been teaching English to children or college students. Since I stopped marking papers, I've been learning to write. Here are some of my latest efforts. A wonderful, a typical Nance. So I'm going to skip the first poem, so someone else can read it. First or second poem. Go ahead.
Please slow it a little bit.
Slow down.
Slow down.
I'm sorry, I do read together. So, Pear, for my sister Kathleen, who visits us, by the way, it's really very much, suggested by a Tagore firefly. Why not abandon the hard green pear of summer's long night? Let the gold sun save us from our clinging misery, our miserly hearts. Let it soften the stem's clutch. Let us hear the soft thud. I'll bite on this side and save you that rosy glow on the other. So, Jim's suggestion is that we read in sequence, so I'm leaving it at the next poem.
I don't care.
Good. Why don't we go around the table and see what?
That's a good idea.
I didn't put here.
Let's just go around in sequence also.
Yeah.
The table.
Okay. Would you like to read one, Adam?
I don't mind. Sure, I'll read one.
Okay.
No, you're there. Just read the
Just read the next one?
Yeah, but what about the camera?
We'll turn it.
You can turn it around?
Okay. At the time of the foundation, in fact, before Poetry Express was formed, when we were still Poetry Nitro, I think we called it, over at one of the other restaurants here, the Peruvian restaurant, Café de la Paz. Mark, our founder, was there, and I went there twice on successive weeks before we got kicked out, unceremoniously kicked out. And so Mark immediately moved us up to a little restaurant on Solano Avenue and asked me to be a co-host. I'd been there 2 times. He didn't know me from Adam, at least I thought he didn't. And it totally freaked me out. But I had seen this other red-haired, strawberry blonde woman reading poems about Bush and getting a laugh from everyone. And she and I had talked briefly during one of the first times I was there, and she was friendly and she welcomed me. And I said, well, I'll do it if Nance will do it. And so Mark said, well, let's ask Nance. And we did, and she did, and I did, and the rest is her story. I've always considered Nance a person with a lot of, what's that French thing, joie de vivre? Joie de vivre. I don't speak French, I speak Spanish.
Joy to be alive.
Exactly. And that's the way I see her. She is saucy at times. as those of us who know her know. And she is a absolutely devoted family person. And that is really cool too. She has some wonderful grandchildren, and I would give anything for Nance to be my grandma. Black tea kettle for my son's mother-in-law. My black tea kettle is a gift not like its giver, tall and blonde. This guy is squat and very dark black. Black and white and Chinese red, my chosen interior scheme, but this the giver could not have known. It's dawn's first touch, with lid off or on. I stand and wait for the good Irish boiling royal my ancestors once insisted upon. It is not Irish tea, but roasted peats coffee, a dark and almost blackened moss. The kettle's bottom has burned to red, time after time, yet the squat guy survives, ready to drip into the whiteness of the cone filter. Glad am I to touch her by his black handle. Glad am I to touch her by this.
Folded towel. When my sister visits, she leaves behind a neat, well-ordered space. It is her gift for me, inherited from our mother. This morning after she was gone, I opened the shower curtain. There on the side of the tub, a huge soft bath towel folded into symmetric folds. Suddenly, I am only 12 again, undone as a towel I kick into my chaos.
Presents, and on occasion she would read a poem, but not very often. So I'm really happy to hear a body of her work tonight. I'm really enjoying her poems. This is called Graves, after Yuan Mei. I put the stick shift into first and drive slowly past my brother's grave. Maybe I'll drive down south to see my other friends, their graves, their cemeteries. So were my mind's wanderings when suddenly snow fell in mid-April. My mind goes into reverse. I think back on graduate school, studying with a friend now dead, The Dead by James Joyce. The snow falling on all the living and the dead at the end of the story. My brother, like me, had no love affairs, but maybe passion, if one counts the snowballs we once threw against the house, against our parents. I do not feel his presence in this present quiet, the whiteness that came so quickly, now gone, but for some apple blossom petals on my
Hi
wing.
Nance, Judy Wells here, and I think I met you at Priya Restaurant. You were always the greatest cheerleader after we read our poems, and I really loved that. It really made me feel like my poem was special, and everybody's poem was very special. This one's appropriate, it's about teaching. Friday afternoon after class in April. Teachers weary her. Their talk of grades, or worse, their venting. Yeah, all through lunch in the faculty lounge, she's been nodding off. But wait, a dreamy-eyed black kid who writes a terrible prose stops by after class to tell her. His head is not filled with words, not the kind of college rhetoric she's been preaching anyway. Written words don't do nothing for him, he says. But all day he hears the inner rhythms of the CDs he sells all weekend. Big Punisher, or Big Pun, is to come to his store with Terror Squad that night. He wonders at his old white lady professor who laughs at this name. 2. Knows she will have to be his Big Punisher with the big F in May. But this afternoon, the Big Pun has let him give her some teaching, some new names, some new fun. That fucking F may loom ahead, but this late Friday afternoon, nobody, it seems, has.
Nance, we're all with you. You've got this amazing ability to be a leader while just staying part of the crowd, part of the scene, and not standing out, but doing it and leading. Goya's truth. This is what Goya saw. Our truest enemy is war. That war itself is organized crime, excitements of blood on green earth's time. Who gets a life by this death game to kill in numbers for the fame? If fed by meat that has been spoiled, veterans turn with stomachs curled. No medal honors on his chest make the soldier feel he's blessed. Only that he could survive, only that he came home alive. Who whips us to believe in death? Old men jealous of young breath. This is what Goya saw. Our truest enemy is war.
You don't know me, I don't know you, but I'm really happy to be part of the community that you helped to start. And the poem I'll be reading is Desert Roadkill. I'm thinking on those 15,890 body bags the Pentagon ordered. They must be made for someone at least 6 feet. But what if, when the truck stops and they load the dead body into one of those, zipping the heavy weight in, there's a body small on the side of the road. 3 feet tall, like my first grandson, or maybe just 2, like my next, or even a toddler size, like my last. The road is dusty, the tires blow sand this way and that. The ambulance drivers can't see clearly, can't pick up anything unordered. Haven't got half sizes anyway. Leave it then, too bad. Words
Hi,
like
Nance.
that.
I'm Sue. I want to say that I admire your gumption and your mischief, and it is my profound hope that you find ways to be gentle with yourself every which way you can. Chinese takeout, a recurring fantasy. I have a fantasy for us. It's a bit like Woody Allen. It's a bit like a Woody Allen comedy of long ago, before he did The Scandal. It's you and me in bed together, either before or after sex. I'm not quite sure. I'll pick after. We are sitting up watching TV and eating Chinese takeout in those white folded cardboard cartons. Maybe you use chopsticks? I don't know. The remote lies between us, dark on a light green or yellow blanket. What are we watching? I don't know. Are we both naked from the top? I don't know. My fantasy doesnn't go in for details. And we are comparing the choices and laughing a little. Anyone who would like to analyze all these symbols, the folded open boxes, the remote, may now feel free to do so. Me, I'm just happy to have this, my recurring fantasy to take out. Berkeley, January 2000.
Yeah, this is Ruth. I'm reading Resolving Conflict. On my plane trip north, I tear out a sheet from an airline magazine by a management consultant. It's a quiz. 3 answers, multiple choice. If you guess right, I suppose you get to manage something. If wrong, you're hopeless. Better go write a poem. Better go write this poem. And question 5 flunks me. A major course of conflict occurs when you ignore someone's A, cultural habits, B, needs, C, desires. I think C, desires, is oversexed, and B, needs is over nerdy, or too needy as the current lingo has it. So I check A, cultural habits. Buzzer sound, buzz, wrong. The right answer on the back pages is B, needs. Oh, I'll go see a fucking behaviorist. I tell them, one of those Pavlov dogs salivating to the bell. Salivating to the bell shrinks. Besides, I knew what they wanted was B, but perverse me, I did not give them what they wanted. And who in the hell are they? Oh well, how could they know? I'm flying into Portland to see my son, the ta-da anthropologist. Not, please note, my son the doctor, or my son the lawyer, but my son the anthropologist. So I make no apologies for their C, desires, my B, needs, or his A, cultural habits. After all, who transmitted lots of those old cultural habits to him anyway? I give myself a quiet A and I leave the magazine in the rack.
I remember when I first came to Priya, you were already post-redhead then. But I remember how your form of support was to, like, at the end of a poem that someone read, you would like repeat a word or a phrase that struck you, or you'd say, yeah. So it was great like that. Okay, so I'm going to read Guardian Visitor. Okay. Today I'm sitting in my tiny garden plot, each tenant in this home aloud. 2 old couples push their walkers past me. I mean to wave and stop them for hello, but decide to stay hidden alone under the black cherry tree. Moments later, I look up from my journal. A young girl of about 12 is there, full of wild talk. She seems to know me. She speaks about her girlfriends, her sister, school, God, and her body changes. Her voice in quick spurts of self-mockeries and anguish. I tell her I know just what she means. I know, I understand. I have these problems too. But it will be okay, even fine, I tell her, smiling, before she fades off into the white blossoms. The old couple returns. They see me this time and wave, but I am gone beyond the garden plot, wanting to keep the visitor all to myself.
Gary Turchin, how are you? I hope you're feeling better. I hope you'll be back soon. We miss your gentle presence here. And I love this poem. I'm glad I got to read this one. I remember you reading it. It's called Purse Snatching, Mine at a Bus Stop. I guess there's an epigraph here. He who steals my pocket steals trash, but he who steals my good name steals gold. Lago in Othello. Well, maybe so, old Lago, what you said to Rodrigo in Othello. But what of the theft of my poetry time? Who steals this from me commits golden crime. You can call me the B word that rhymes with itch, and I won't care if I land in a ditch. But bring back my stuff, my keys in my purse, and don't give me that crap that things could be worse. I'm not crying to let my tears glisten, so Lago, listen. Being left with my good name is not funny. Call me a hoe. I want my money.